The 2022 Kansas City Chiefs are going to be different in a couple of significant ways. We're going to go over them tonight on the Chiefs Breakdown here on RGR Football. Welcome in. I still believe the return of the Reaper is coming. I believe 2022 for Chiefs Kingdom is underway. I'm going to use this all in the run-up to the 2022 season. So I hope that you guys will check it out. And you get your Believe 13 over at the RGR store. We have all kinds of gear and stuff stowed away there for you guys. I hope you're having a great Father's Day. I'm recording this early in the morning because my family's going to be busy as well. But wanted to say thank you and enjoy your holiday to all you guys out there being dads and getting it done. There's a lot going on. And I wanted to take this particular breakdown Sunday evening to take a step back. Now, if you're new, make sure you like and sub and hit that bell. Become part of Rogue Nation by being a subscriber here. And if you want to become a member and get deeper into Rogue Nation, you can get into the Discord by becoming a rookie member level or higher. And then you can just reach out to me at rgrpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get you added to that members-only Discord, which is a perk of this channel and being a member. That said, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of things that we have to think and talk about because there's not anything going to happen for the next 6 weeks. What's happening right now? Let me just give you the lay of the land in terms of what's going on. The team is kind of scattered. A couple of guys will stay in town to do rehab, things like that. I would expect that Justin Ross would not be out of town very long because for him in particular, Josh Gordon as well, making this roster is going to be dependent on taking reps. Taking reps means you have to be ready to go on the field, and that means you have to be working with the training staff. So yes, this is a period of time where most players go away and get some downtime and bring everything down and don't do football related stuff. They'll still work out. They'll still train. It just won't be on a significantly like developmental type program. You want to let the body rest a little bit before you get ready for training camp in the preseason. That takes a lot out on the human body, especially if you've been in the league a couple of years. It starts to catch up with you, especially for this team, given how long the seasons have been. So they need to do the number one thing in taking care of themselves. For those injured players, that includes the rehab part. And I think that's going to be pretty significant for those players trying to make this roster. Now, beyond that, what has to change? What's going to change? What's going to be different about this particular team rather than this last year's? And we got to remember, even though there are a lot of players year to year, every 53-man roster, every season is a different team. It has components of what it was before, but it's always a little bit different because you're changing your personnel. This year, we could see up to, 11, 12, 14 spots even be different on this 53-man roster. Some think maybe even 20. That's anywhere from 15 to 20% of the roster could be different than last season. And that's quite a bit of departure from the Super Bowl year. So how are they going to accomplish that? Well, a couple of things are going to change. I think this kind of denotes, this might be my favorite pick from the offseason, to tell you the truth. This kind of denotes where we're going. And that just is that everybody's together. Everybody's kind of having a good laugh. But Patrick and Matt Nagy here are going to be the key. Now, Greg Lewis is back there as well. But Nagy and Patrick are going to be what changes this. They haven't been together in quite a while. Matt was there, I believe, his rookie season. Got to know him a little bit. But the creativity's got to come back. Running the ball more effectively, more creatively is going to come back. And I do think that these two guys together are going to have an impact that we're going to be able to see. And my cursor's a little small, but I'm just going to circle these two right here. Because that, I think, changes things. It's not that it's going to overhaul everything. It's that Coach Reed and Patrick have their thing. EB and Patrick have their thing, and that triangle has been working. Now it's a square, or at least a trapezoid, depending on what kind of angles you're looking at, because I do think they will come up with some different angles. And having Matt Nagy back in the mix to work with a more mature Patrick, to work with a Patrick that's been with Andy and been executing and been a Super Bowl champion, now with EB, I think that just rounds it out that much more. It feels to me like as a foursome, the four guys that are really in charge of the offense, the head coach, the coordinator, the quarterback coach, and the quarterback himself. That feels like this group is more prepared to deal with things than last year's was, when it was just the three of them, where they might have a tendency to try to force their way through some of the coverages they saw and try to force their way through some of the issues that they were having. Whereas I think having four voices in there, normally that's a bad thing. I can't stress that enough. for an average team, this is a negative. This is something that detracts from everybody to getting together on the same page and actually performing. But for this particular group, I think this is a huge positive because it rounds the whole thing out. It makes it easier to attack what's there and have another voice and another set of eyes and another way of going about it. This is a huge positive in my mind because what Matt Nagy brings is something I don't think they've had in a little bit. And that's key, to tell you the truth. Now, all kinds of things are going to change as we go through some of the looks that we're going to get. The wide receiver group is obviously going to change, right? That's going to be key because you need more. You need more weapons. You need more options. You need more different ways to exploit what the defense gets you. I personally feel, in general, that when you take a look at what worked last year and what didn't work for defenses around the league last year, they're going to want to stick with what they think worked. They're going to want to think that they stopped the offense. They're going to want to think that they can do that again and playing, cover threes, cover four, deep shells off on the safeties is going to stop Patrick Mahomes. They're going to be wrong, but they're going to have to be proven wrong. And I think that that's going to be a bit of a process too. So I expect that. And so it's all about manipulating underneath. It's all about manipulating and taking what they give you. And I think that other extra set of eyes is going to help. And having more receivers with more abilities is going to help these two really come up with what they're doing. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. Now, how you put the offense together, that's going to change a little bit too. Because I think the tight ends, are going to be more multiple. And I think you're going to have a second subset of what they can do in personnel groups. And that is 2 and 3 tight end groups. And I do think 3 tight ends is on the table. I think that can be a significant package for this team. I think they can do that with either of the really exploitive running back types that can split out with McKinnon, with Clyde, certainly with Ely. I think that there's a lot of room to maneuver there from the wings, the H-back sets, the trip sets, the bunches of tight ends like we saw back when Ross Travis was on this roster. I think there's a lot of really, really cool options that they can exploit defenses that want to play the top stuff. Let them drive it down their throats. Even if you consider running the screen game or the short pass game, whatever it is, the quick hitting plays, run it, cram it down their throats until you pull them out of that too high. And then Patrick's back in business doing what he wants to do over the top. That's what I expect to see because in the end, everybody has to fight their own tendencies, and that's what they're going to want to do. Now, yes, there's going to be some questions for this guy, Brett Veach as well, but it's going to be about Clark Hunt. What does he, along with Andy and Brett Veach, want to do with the Orlando Brown situation? Can they get it done by July 15th? That's the deadline. They have to have that contract done or it's kaput, it's franchise tag or nothing beyond that point. If July 16 hits and Orlando Brown does not have a contract extension, it will be the franchise tag or sitting out the year. And I don't think any party wants him to sit out the year. I don't think Orlando does either. I know he's got to do what's best for him, but I don't think he wants to sit out the year. I am firmly convinced of that. So can you live on the franchise tag? Yes. Does that help this team this year? Not really. Maybe longevity-wise. For those of you that aren't convinced that Orlando can be the left tackle of the future, that certainly makes sense, is paying him one franchise tag and letting him prove it again. Now, I do think he will improve. I think he will put himself into the top 10 offensive tackles. Should he be paid as number one? No, not in my opinion, no way. But I do think he can be in the top 10. I think he will play his way into the top 10 because I think he did remarkably well in making that transition in what was a body type that he wasn't quite prepared to play in this offense. I think you're going to see a better Orlando Brown in this offense this year. But it's about Clark Hunt, Brett Veach, and Andy Reid. How are they going to make the decision? What are they going to do with that contract? Will they meet him somewhere that makes sense and gets it done? I go back and forth, and I'm still kind of up in the air as we talk now on Father's Day. In the end, I think it's a little bit more likely than not because I think everybody's working towards the same goal, and they want Patrick to have a left tackle that is his, that they can consider for the future. I don't know if it gets done, but I'm going to put it like 52% right now. That's where I think. And these are all things that I want to talk about tonight because this is what we're going to see in the next weeks, next 6 weeks before teams report to camp. We talked about the wide receiver group. We talked about the magic here? Well, on the other side of the ball, you got to get some things done here. And I picked this image to go over. In fact, I'll change the view here because I want everybody to be able to see it really well. What you see here is a couple of things. Zane Anderson paying a lot of attention. Back here, you see some of the veteran linebackers off the ball. What you see here is guys getting instruction in Chanel and Rose to the young linebackers that I think will be receiving a lot of instruction. The other thing that you see here that I do want to point out is when you look at who's lining up with the starters, Chris Jones, Juan Thornhill's over here, Brian Cook's with the group, so is Elijah Lee. We haven't talked much about him, but I do expect to see him out there. So what does that put everybody else back here? It puts them a little bit further on the outs is what it is. You have ones over here. You have twos on the field here. You see that Key is actually lined up with the twos right this second. These guys are watching, and I think that's indicative of what has to happen because there has to be a changing of the guard. It has to be a redeployment, a redevelopment, a resetting of the defense in terms of not just its starters where you have Karlaftis and you have Trent McDuffie, but all the way down. You have to get better, more edge, quicker to the ball, more aggressive, able to complete your assignments, able to cover. That's why Rose is out there with Chanel, by the way. I think those two as a pair are going to be really interesting. I can see them in the future being much like Spags wanted to platoon with Neiman and Dan Sorensen. I could see those two being a platoon as well. If you need to give Willie and Nick Bolton a rep off or a series off, or you're in the, late in the game and you're up 14 points and the other team has to drive and you just want to play the rush coverage combinations, that could be something they platoon with later in the year. I think it's more of a 2023 thing, but it certainly could be up for grabs. But it is about the youth movement. So we're going to see in the next couple of weeks before they get to camp, who gets talked about. There's not going to be much from the team official. You're going to see social media. You're going to see a couple of the beat reporters get a little bit of information. So there's going to be some of that in there. And I think that's all about momentum going into training camp. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make you get on the roster, but it gives you momentum to get there. And if you get more reps, then you get more opportunity. If you get more opportunity, you have a better chance to do it. And that's kind of what it comes down to for me. So keep an eye on some of the smaller names and some of the bigger names. These two guys in particular, these two guys could be the key to the season. I'm just going to put it that way. Because Turk Wharton and Colin Saunders got to get it done. You got to be more than just a role player at this point. You have to affect the quarterback. Doesn't matter how. I couldn't care less where you line up. I'm glad to see Colin looks a little lighter here. Turk looks a little heavier, actually, which may actually help him inside at DT. So these guys are the second line. These are your backups. These are your core backups. There's going to be Dante Stallworth, who might play a role. I'm unconvinced. He played 1 year where he actually was a decent pass rusher. In fact, he outstatted both of these guys in one season. Can he do that again? Do these guys rise up to the competition? This is your livelihood if you're Colin Saunders. You're looking at the end of your time in Kansas City if you don't break onto the field right now. I'm pulling for Colin. I've been a fan since he came out, Senior Bowl flips and all that. I think he's a solid dude, but he's got to kick it into his highest gear right now in order to survive in this league, make this roster, and make a difference in order to get another contract. That's what it's about. If these two guys come through, what that tells you is that you have Chris Jones inside that will be his normal Chris Jones. No more screwing around, playing out a defensive end. You're going to have Derek Noddy, who's going to lock down first down, maybe second down, depending on how well they can perform on first down. I think you might see a little bit of impetus from opposing offenses to try to throw the ball on first this year. Try to get ahead of those sticks. If they can get decent enough pass rush early in the season, then I think teams are going to have to revert, and that helps Noddy. If they give up a lot of pass yards on first down in the first 3-4 weeks, I think you're going to have to see Noddy have to rotate out, and they might have to play a pass set on first down. That changes things in terms of the total rotation, the total reps. That brings these guys onto the field right now, like ASAP, because you have to have the pass rush. You have to have something. These two guys are going to be critical. If neither of them show up and neither of them become a pass rusher that can actually scare some offenses, then you're going to see Chris Jones doubled all the time. And then you're going to have to rely on either old Frank Clark or young George Karlaftis to beat their guys one-on-one and affect the quarterback. That's a tall tale. That is a tall, tall tale. And it's going to be tough. My money is that one of these guys stands up. Maybe both of them. Maybe in a rotation. Maybe they can push each other. That's what I'm looking for. As long as one of them can perform each game, they have a chance. The defense has a chance to improve. If they don't, then we're talking about an acquisition, maybe by the trade deadline, maybe something else, because you have to have 4 guys that can get to the quarterback on third down, period. I think 3 of them can. Maybe not as consistently as we like in Frank Clark, but 3 of them can. That 4th spot has got to get there. I know they have a couple of ways that they can add on. Chanel that we looked at earlier is one of them, that you can kind of salt and pepper things in there to try to help that out and help everybody else. But this group, again, is young. So we have to see some development there. It comes back to, can these guys get her done? And at the end of the day, it's all about this guy. I'd love to tell you it isn't, but it is. If Patrick Mahomes can take a rekindled passing game along with Matt Nagy, along with the new receivers, tumble it back up and get it productive in multiple ways at multiple levels again, they're in business. We'll know early. We're going to start looking in the coming weeks about specific attacks that they're going to have to either hold off or they're going to have to execute against other teams in the first half before the bye week. They're going to have 7 games before the bye. You got to get straight out. You got to be 500 in there to make a Super Bowl run, in my opinion. It's pretty much it. Now, I think this team has the capability of winning 13, 14 games. I still think it's there. I don't buy that the loss of Tyreek Hill is a doomsday message. So I do think that they can get some of those things done, but they should be planning about that now. Now, I know Patrick's got a reveal party coming for his second child. Like, there's all kinds of things that they need to get done in terms of relaxation and downtime. I know he's going to celebrate the World Cup coming and all these other things. But that's all mental health oriented. You got to get that straight so you can get your head on right and keep going. I think at this point, I feel like it's going to be a fight, but I feel like they still own the West in terms of winning the title. I don't think they sweep the West this year, and that's okay. Quite frankly, if they can still win the AFC West title this season with how much better each of the AFC West teams has gotten, they're better prepared for the playoffs, the playoff run, and the Super Bowl. That's what it comes down to. If you face better competition during the year and you prevail, you will be better off for it. And that's what they have to see for these guys. Keep it light like they're doing right here, but make inroads and make preparations. I think that they will. What do you guys think? Leave either in the live chat or down in the comments. Like, where do you think they stand? Whether it's a record prediction or how you think it's all going to come together. I know there's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of ifs. The Ely target, the wide receivers at 5, 6, maybe even 7. Whether they run the ball more or they just try to run it in new ways. Who is that? Does Clyde finally step out? There's all these questions, but it all comes back to moving the ball, putting up points. That's all there is to it. Score more points than the other team, you win ball games, and that is all that matters in the end. I'm looking forward to it, and I feel pretty good about it. Like I was saying before, I'm not letting go of this. I think the Reaper will return. I do believe in 2022. That's important to me. I think that it's there. I think it's there to be had. I think the NFC competition is down. I think you've beaten all the AFC competition that you really think has a chance to beat you this year. The Bengals don't scare me. I think you can beat them. I don't think it's a problem. You just got to go execute. So I still believe, and I hope that you guys do. I'm going to keep using that all the way through the preseason because that's what it's about, getting everybody on the same page. I want to know who's your sneaky player that you want to see make this roster. There's a lot of them, especially on defense. Will they keep 26, 25, split it down the roster? I think there might be more defenders on this 53-man roster, at least the first week, say game 1, than there have been in recent years. I think they may have to do that. We're going to see a lot. We're going to do rundowns of camp all the time once we get going. We won't have much on the early reporters. The quarterbacks and rookies get to come in early. We're not going to see much of that because the media doesn't get to see any of that. And they're not open to the public either. So that's a drawback. But for me, on this Father's Day, I'm about to go crack an Avery and have a good time. I hope that you will do the same because the future is bright for Kansas City. I think this season could be another run it back. And maybe it's good that they're not using run it back. They're not saying it. Maybe that's the key right there. I think that it could happen. So right now, today on this holiday, I'm feeling really optimistic. I hope that you guys are too. I hope all you dads had a great day out there, and I hope everybody else enjoyed your time with your dad. So everybody keep it cool. We're going to have the Q&A tomorrow night, just like always. We ain't going anywhere. We're going to have Chief in the North on Thursdays, just like always. We ain't going anywhere. And we're going to have all kinds of content in between. Dan's got film. I've got player reviews. We've got stat reviews. We've got some new wrinkles coming for you. So stay tuned. Stay with us. I know it's summer, but you're going to have content from us 5-6 days a week, all the time. Don't forget about us. Spread the word. And I hope you guys have